The blood pooled beneath Officer Raymond Mercer's body, spreading across the asphalt like dark wings unfurling in the night. His service weapon lay just inches from his outstretched fingers, unfired. The dashcam footage would later show a figure masked, dressed in black standing over him for 3 silent seconds before disappearing into the darkness. The man who would become known as the Phantom Killer had claimed his first law enforcement victim, and in doing so had declared war on the Millfield Police Department. But Marcus Cole wasn't always a killer. 8 months earlier, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard of the modest suburban home where Marcus Cole had spent the past 5 years rebuilding his life. At 34, he had the weathered look of someone who had seen too much too soon, deep lines around his eyes that appeared when he smiled, which wasn't often these days. "Daddy, look!" 6-year-old Ellie held up her drawing, a colorful mess of crayon depicting what was supposedly their family: Marcus, Ellie, and her mother Diane. "That's us at the beach, remember?" Marcus smiled, the rare, genuine kind that transformed his face. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. We'll hang it on the fridge." He ruffled her dark curls, so like her mother's, and felt the familiar ache in his chest. 2 years since Diane had succumbed to cancer, and the pain still blindsided him at unexpected moments. "Mr. Cole?" The voice came from the fence line where Officer James Reeves stood, one hand resting casually on his holster. "Got a minute?" Marcus tensed but kept his expression neutral as he turned to his daughter. "Go inside, Ellie. Finish your homework. I'll be in soon." After ensuring his daughter was inside, Marcus approached the fence slowly, hands visible at his sides, an instinctive precaution from his 3 years in Millfield State Correctional. "Officer Reeves." "What brings you by?" Reeves, a bulky man with small, calculating eyes, had been the arresting officer in the botched robbery that had sent Marcus to prison 8 years ago. Since Marcus's release on good behavior after serving 3 years, Reeves had made it his personal mission to catch him stepping out of line. "Just checking in on our favorite ex-con." Reeves's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Heard you were late on your parole check-in last week." "My daughter was sick. I called my parole officer and rescheduled. It's all documented." Sure. Reeves nodded, looking past Marcus to the house. "Cute kid. Shame about her mom. Heard she died while you were inside." Marcus felt his hands curl into fists before he consciously relaxed them. "Is there something specific you need, Officer Reeves?" "Just letting you know we're watching. Always watching." Reeves tapped his badge. "Some people think 3 years was too light for what you did." "I served my time for a non-violent offense." Marcus kept his voice, even despite the rage building inside him. "I'm trying to raise my daughter now. We both know you were just the fall guy for Randall's crew." Reeves leaned in closer. "And now your old friends are back in business. Funny coincidence, isn't it?" Marcus felt a chill. Tyrell Randall had been the actual mastermind behind the electronics store robbery that had gone wrong, leaving Marcus to take the fall while Tyrell and the others escaped. Marcus had adhered to the code of silence, never naming names, not out of loyalty, but out of fear for what would happen to Diane and their infant daughter if he did. "I don't know anything about that," Marcus said carefully. "I work at Grayson's auto shop now. That's it." "We'll see." Reeves stepped back. "Give my regards to Ellie. Beautiful child. Would be a shame if she had to visit her daddy through prison glass again." Long after Reeves's patrol car pulled away, Marcus stood in the yard, his heart hammering with a mix of fear and rage. The implicit threat to Ellie was clear. They were trying to force his hand, to push him to either inform on Randall's operation or to get desperate enough to rejoin it. Inside, Marcus found Ellie at the kitchen table with her homework. He dropped a kiss on top of her head. "How about pizza tonight, kiddo?" "With pineapple?" she asked hopefully. "Half pineapple," he compromised, making a face that made her giggle. As he ordered the pizza, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Need to talk. The old place. 9 p.m. T." Marcus stared at the message, his mouth dry. He hadn't heard from Tyrell Randall since before prison. This couldn't be a coincidence, not after Reeves's visit. The walls of the life he'd carefully rebuilt were starting to close in. After putting Ellie to bed, Marcus called Mrs. Lowenstein from next door. an elderly widow who adored Ellie and often helped with childcare. "She's asleep, but I need to run out for an hour," Marcus explained. "Emergency at work. Can you just listen for her?" "Of course, dear. Take your time." The old place was an abandoned warehouse by the river where Randall's crew had planned their operations years ago. As Marcus parked his beat-up Honda a block away, he questioned his sanity for coming. But if Randall was back and drawing police attention, it could blow back on Marcus whether he was involved or not. The warehouse was dimly lit, with a single bulb hanging from a chain in what had once been an office area. Tyrell Randall sat on a metal desk, flanked by two men Marcus didn't recognize. Tyrell hadn't changed much, still slender and sharp-featured, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Marcus Cole," Tyrell smiled, spreading his arms. "The loyal soldier returns." "I'm not returning to anything," Marcus said, staying near the door. "I got your message. What do you want?" "Straight to business." "I respect that." Tyrell hopped off the desk. "I heard Reeves paid you a visit today. That man has a real hard-on for our crew." "I'm not part of any crew," Marcus said firmly. "I have a daughter to think about." "That's exactly why I reached out." Tyrell's voice softened with what seemed like genuine concern. "They're going to try to use you to get to me, Marcus. Either as an informant or as a scapegoat again." "So what do you suggest?" "I'm on parole. I can't leave town, and I can't afford a lawyer if they start coming after me for something I didn't do." Tyrell reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, which he tossed to Marcus. $20,000. Emergency fund. Get yourself and your little girl out of town if things go south. Marcus stared at the envelope without touching it. "Why would you do this?" "You did time. That should have been mine. I owe you." Tyrell shrugged. "Plus, I need to know you won't crack if they put pressure on you." "I didn't talk last time, did I?" Marcus finally took the envelope, knowing he might need it if the police manufactured charges against him. "But I'm not getting involved in whatever you're doing now." "Wouldn't dream of asking." Tyrell smiled, but his eyes remained calculating. "Just keep your head down. Things might get messy in Millfield soon." That warning echoed in Marcus's mind as he drove home, the envelope heavy in his jacket pocket. Whatever Randall was planning, it was big enough to warrant buying Marcus's continued silence. And that meant trouble was coming, whether Marcus wanted it or not. 2 weeks later, the armed robbery of Millfield First National Bank dominated local news. 3 masked men, military precision, no casualties, but $3 million in untraceable cash taken. Officer James Reeves was the first responder on the scene, nearly catching one of the robbers before they escaped in separate vehicles. 2 days after the robbery, Reeves appeared at Marcus's door, this time with a search warrant. "What is this?" Marcus asked, his stomach dropping as Ellie watched wide-eyed from the hallway. "Anonymous tip says you're holding money from the bank job," Reeves said, smiling thinly as 3 other officers pushed past him into the house. "Won't take long if you've got nothing to hide." Marcus sent Ellie to her room, then followed the officers as they tore through his home. He knew what they would find: the envelope with $20,000 hidden in the air vent in his bedroom. Money he couldn't explain. Money that would violate his parole and send him back to prison. When Reeves emerged from the bedroom holding the envelope, his smile was triumphant. Well, well, that's an awful lot of cash for an auto mechanic." "That's not from any bank robbery," Marcus said, knowing how weak it sounded. "Save it for the judge," Reeves replied, nodding to the other officers. "Marcus Cole, you're under arrest for receiving stolen property and violating the terms of your parole." As they handcuffed him, Marcus could hear Ellie crying in her bedroom. "Please," he said quietly to one of the female officers, "let me call my neighbor to come get my daughter." The officer looked to Reeves, who shrugged indifferently. "Make it quick." Mrs. Lowenstein arrived as they were putting Marcus in the patrol car. Ellie ran to him, throwing her arms around his legs. "Daddy, don't go." Marcus knelt as best he could with the handcuffs. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. Mrs. Lowenstein will take care of you until I sort this out." He looked up at his elderly neighbor. "Call Janet Morris," he told her, naming the social worker who had helped them after Diane died. "She knows what to do if I can't come home for a while." As the patrol car pulled away, Marcus watched his daughter's tearful face recede in the rear window. The injustice of it all burned in his chest, had stayed clean, had rebuilt his life for Ellie, and now was being framed for someone else's crime. Again. At the station, Marcus repeated his story. The money was from a friend, a loan to help with Ellie's school expenses. But without Tyrell to corroborate, and Marcus wouldn't have asked him to, even if he could find him, the story fell apart under scrutiny. His parole was revoked, and he was sentenced to serve the remaining 5 years of his original sentence, plus facing new charges for the stolen money. As they led him out of the courtroom, Marcus locked eyes with Reeves, who gave him a small, satisfied nod. Back in Millfield State Correctional, Marcus retreated into himself. The letters from Ellie, written in her careful child's handwriting and forwarded by Janet Morris from the foster home where she now lived, were his only connection to the outside world. Each one detailed another missed birthday, another school event he couldn't attend, another piece of his daughter's childhood lost to him. And then, 6 months into his new sentence, the letters stopped. For 3 weeks, Marcus existed in a state of escalating panic. Calls to Janet Morris went unreturned. Finally, he received a brief note from her. Ellie's foster family has moved out of state. I'm trying to get their new contact information, but it's complicated. We'll update when I can. That night, alone in his cell, something broke inside Marcus Cole. The man who had once accepted the injustice of the system with quiet dignity began to plan his escape. 2 months later, the prison break was violent and desperate. During a transfer between facilities, Marcus and 2 other inmates overpowered the guards. In the chaos, one guard was seriously injured. Marcus didn't look back as he disappeared into the woods surrounding the transport route. The 2 other escaped prisoners were caught within days, but Marcus, with his knowledge of the area and his absolute determination, remained at large. He knew he couldn't contact anyone from his old life. They would be watched. Instead, he lived in the shadows, taking odd jobs for cash and moving constantly. His sole focus became finding Ellie. Using what little information he had, Marcus traced her foster family to a small town in a neighboring state. What he discovered shattered him. The foster father had a record of complaints for abuse, all dismissed due to his connections in the local police department. The thought of Ellie in such a home, unprotected and afraid, fueled Marcus's transformation from desperate father to something darker. On a rain-soaked night, Marcus broke into the foster home. He found Ellie thin and withdrawn, a bruise yellowing on her cheek. When she saw him, her eyes widened in disbelief before she launched herself into his arms. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, her small body trembling against his. The confrontation with the foster parents went badly. Marcus hadn't intended violence, but when the foster father pulled a gun, instinct took over. Marcus left the man unconscious and the woman tied up, taking Ellie and disappearing into the night. Now a fugitive with a kidnapped child, Marcus had crossed a line from which there was no return. They lived on the move, using false names, staying in motels paid for with cash. Marcus homeschooled Ellie as best he could and tried to give her some semblance of normality. But the law was closing in. Marcus knew it was only a matter of time before they were found. He needed a more permanent solution: new identities, a way out of the country, a fresh start where no one would find them. That required money and connections he didn't have. Which is why, after months of running, Marcus Cole found himself back in Millfield, seeking out the one person who owed him, Tyrell Randall. The meeting was arranged through an old contact at Grayson's auto shop. Randall had moved up in the world, operating out of a legitimate-seeming import business while running a major drug distribution network on the side. "You've got balls coming back here," Tyrell said when they met in the back office of his warehouse. "Half the cops in the state are looking for you." "I need help getting out of the country," Marcus said, cutting to the chase. "Me and my daughter. New identities, new start." Tyrell studied him thoughtfully. "That's expensive, especially with the heat you're carrying. What's in it for me? I took the fall for you once. I never said a word. Now I need you to return the favor." A long silence stretched between them before Tyrell nodded slowly. "I'll make some calls, but it'll take time. Maybe a week to set up. Where are you staying?" Marcus wouldn't tell him. "I'll contact you." As he turned to leave, Tyrell called after him, "Watch yourself, Marcus. Reeves is obsessed with finding you. Word is he's been working overtime, off the books, trying to track you down." "Let him try," Marcus said, his voice hard. The man who had gone to prison trying to provide for his family, who had accepted his punishment quietly, no longer existed. In his place stood someone who had nothing left to lose except his daughter, and for her, he would do anything. The confrontation came sooner than Marcus expected. Whether someone at the auto shop had talked or whether Reeves had been watching Tyrell, the result was the same. As Marcus left the warehouse, a patrol car's lights flashed in the alleyway. Officer Raymond Mercer was alone, a young cop who had the misfortune of spotting Marcus while on a routine patrol. "Freeze! Police!" Marcus ran. Mercer pursued him on foot through a maze of alleys and abandoned lots until they reached a dead end behind an old factory. Marcus turned, cornered, as Mercer approached cautiously, weapon drawn. "Marcus Cole, you're under arrest," Mercer said, breathing hard. "Get on the ground, now." "I can't go back," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "You don't understand. My daughter—" "I said get on the ground." Mercer moved closer, his gun unwavering. What happened next would be replayed endlessly on the news. The sudden lunge, the struggle, Mercer's head striking the corner of a dumpster as they fell. The officer lay motionless, blood pooling beneath him. Marcus stood over him, stunned, watching as the life faded from the young officer's eyes. He hadn't meant to kill him. It was an accident. A terrible, irreversible accident. But as the reality of what had happened sank in, Marcus knew that explanation wouldn't matter. He had just become a cop killer. For 3 silent seconds, Marcus stood over Officer Mercer's body, a maelstrom of horror, regret, and cold calculation warring within him. Then, survival instinct took over. He grabbed the officer's gun and disappeared into the night. The killing of Officer Mercer transformed the hunt for Marcus Cole from a routine fugitive case into a statewide manhunt. His face was everywhere, on television, in newspapers, on digital billboards. The quiet life he had tried to build for himself and Ellie was now an impossible dream. Tyrell, true to his word despite the increased heat, arranged for fake passports and transport to Canada, where another contact would help them cross to Europe. The meeting point was an abandoned cabin in the woods north of Millfield. On the night they were to leave, Marcus held Ellie close in the back seat of a stolen car parked near the cabin. "We're going on an adventure," he told her, trying to keep his voice light. "Somewhere new, where we can be together." "Are the bad people still looking for us?" she asked, her small face serious in the dim light. The question pierced him. In her eyes, the police were the villains, and her father the hero. The moral complexity of their situation, of his choices, was something she was too young to understand. Would she ever forgive him when she learned the truth? "Some people are," he answered honestly, "but we're going to be safe soon." As they approached the cabin, Marcus sensed something was wrong. It was too quiet, the darkness too complete. He told Ellie to stay hidden in the car, covered with a blanket, no matter what she heard. The ambush was well executed. As Marcus approached the cabin, floodlights suddenly illuminated the clearing. Reeves's voice came over a megaphone. "Marcus Cole, you're surrounded. Come out with your hands up." In the chaos that followed, Marcus did the only thing he could think of. He ran in the opposite direction from where Ellie was hidden, drawing the officers away from the car. Shots were fired. Marcus felt a bullet graze his arm but kept running into the dense woods. For hours, the manhunt continued through the forest. Marcus used every trick he had learned in his months as a fugitive, doubling back, crossing streams to mask his scent from the dogs, staying low and moving silently. By dawn, he had somehow eluded the search perimeter. Exhausted and bleeding, he made his way back to where he had left Ellie, praying the car hadn't been discovered. The car was gone. Panic seized him as he searched the area frantically, calling her name in hoarse whispers. There was no sign of her, no indication of what had happened. Had the police found her? Had someone else come along and taken the car, not knowing a child was hidden inside? Marcus collapsed against a tree, his mind racing with terrifying possibilities. In trying to protect her, Had he lost her forever? 3 days later, a haggard and desperate Marcus broke into an unoccupied vacation home to find food and medical supplies. The television was on, broadcasting the latest update on the manhunt. Authorities confirm that the daughter of fugitive Marcus Cole is now in protective custody. Sources say the child was found alone in a vehicle near the site of last week's failed operation to capture Cole, who remains at large after killing Officer Raymond Mercer. Relief flooded through him at the knowledge that Ellie was safe, followed quickly by despair. She was in the system now, beyond his reach. Even if he somehow managed to evade capture, he could never risk trying to take her again. The life they might have had together was gone. In that moment, something fundamental shifted in Marcus Cole. The desperate father fighting against injustice to save his daughter transformed into something colder and more dangerous. If he couldn't have justice or redemption, he would have vengeance on the system that had taken everything from him, and on the man who had made it his mission to destroy him. James Reeves would pay for what he had done. 6 months after the failed capture at the cabin, Detective James Reeves returned home from another frustrating day, searching for Marcus Cole. The case had consumed him, becoming an obsession that had cost him sleep, strained his marriage, and earned him reprimands from superiors who thought he was wasting resources on a fugitive who had likely fled the country or died in the woods. As Reeves entered his dark house, he didn't immediately notice the figure sitting in his living room. When he turned on the light, his hand instinctively went to his weapon. "I wouldn't," said Marcus Cole calmly. "I've had plenty of time to set this up." Reeves froze, taking in the man before him, thinner, harder, with eyes that held none of the fear or uncertainty they once had. "How did you get in here?" "Does it matter?" Marcus stood slowly. "You've been looking for me for a long time, Detective Reeves. Well, here I am. You're under arrest for the murder of Officer Mercer," Reeves said, though he made no move to draw his weapon or call for backup. Something in Cole's demeanor warned him against it. "We both know I didn't mean to kill him." Marcus's voice was flat. "It was an accident. But that didn't matter to you, did it? You needed me to be a monster to justify what you'd done, framing me, taking me away from my daughter, destroying the life I built." "You were a criminal," Reeves countered. "You still are. Because you never gave me a chance to be anything else." Marcus took a step closer. "I've watched you, Reeves. I know about the money you took from Randall to look the other way. I know about the evidence you planted. I know everything." Reeves paled slightly. "You can't prove any of that." "I don't need to prove it." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "But the state police might be interested in what's on here. Randall kept records of all his payoffs. Insurance, he called it." "What do you want?" Reeves asked, his voice hoarse. "I want to see my daughter, but that's never going to happen now, is it?" Marcus's expression was chillingly calm. "So I'll settle for you living with the knowledge that I got away, that despite everything you did to destroy me, you failed." Marcus placed the flash drive on the coffee table. "I'll be gone by morning. Somewhere you'll never find me, but I'll be watching, Reeves. And if you ever try to contact my daughter or interfere in her life in any way, what's on that drive goes public." With that, Marcus walked past the stunned detective and out the front door, disappearing once more into the night. The phantom who had eluded justice, leaving behind only questions and the cold shadow of what might have been. James Reeves never reported the encounter. 3 days later, he requested transfer to another department, citing personal reasons. The case of Marcus Cole, cop killer and escaped fugitive, eventually went cold, filed away with thousands of other unsolved cases. And somewhere, beyond the reach of those who sought him, Marcus Cole began yet another new life alone, haunted by the face of the man he had accidentally killed, and by thoughts of the daughter who would grow up believing her father was a murderer. Sometimes justice and injustice are separated by nothing more than a moment of desperation and the thin blue line that divides those who enforce the law from those who fall victim to it.